Today's YouTube video is going to be called Sex Game, Be a Rock Star, Not a Robot. I repeat, today's episode is going to be Sex Game, Be a Rock Star, Don't Be a Robot. Now, we live in a time period where the feminism and Me Too propaganda has made it almost literally impossible for any man to find a beautiful, attractive woman physically, sexually attractive. So now you got a case where most men, doesn't matter if you're a black man, a white man, a Mexican man, an Indian man, hell, you can be Asian, from the ages of 18 to 29, and I'm going to exchange the age limit to the age of 18 to 35, maybe 40, that just by looking at a woman's ass, just looking at a woman's big butt or big breasts, doesn't matter if she have a big butt, a small butt, big titties, or small titties, you can most likely agree that 85% of the time, most women will take that as sexual harassment. Now, what is sexual harassment? Sexual harassment is when you make a woman, doesn't matter if it's a black woman, a white woman, a Mexican woman, an Asian woman, she can be Indian, and you make her feel very uncomfortable. Any appropriate gestures, looking and staring too long at her ass and breasts, checking out her long legs, looking at her skirt, anything that identifies with sexual harassment. Back in the 80s and the 90s and some part of the 2000s, it used to be that if you touch her ass and breasts or her legs or her thighs, or even touch her hair, then that was pretty much sexual harassment. Then you had grounds to get fired and basically you got fired and lost your job, basically. You would get strike one, which was to bring you into the office. The infamous, we're going to bring you into the office and sit you down and explain to you the rules and the regulations. Strike two, again, they brought you for a sit-down chat. Strike three is where they pull out a pen or a piece of paper and said, now we need to make you write down your signature that you agree to these terms, that if you violate for the last and final time, you get fired. And it's like a dark cloud. It follows you everywhere you go. I don't care if you go to the movies, the mall, the park, the beach, the gym, any place you go to, women will most likely look at you like something's wrong with you. And anytime you apply for a job, it will always come up in the computer on file that you sexually harassed a woman. And it don't matter if you actually had sex or if you didn't have sex with the woman 85 to 90% of the time. It would follow you everywhere you went. And even if you explain your story 100%, even if you say, well, there was no proof of evidence, or I did something wrong, or she did something wrong, it will always go with the woman's side of the story and never hear what a man has to say. Because that's the rules and the law of feminism and Me Too. Of course, I'm going to call it bullshit hypocrisy. Now, why I'm going to call it bullshit hypocrisy? Because the only time women, as in 80 to 85% of the time, women will most likely say a man is sexually harassing them, is if the woman does not find the man physically, sexually attractive. Now, you might ask yourself, what is physical sexual attraction? Physical sexual attraction is when a woman finds a man physically sexually attractive. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, he's athletic. He could be between 6 feet to 6'7". He could be between 190 to 220, maybe 230 pounds of muscle with broad shoulders, six-pack abs. He's lean. He plays basketball and football, and he looks good. And if you're playing basketball or football or baseball, or you're an R&B singer, or you're a rapper or a rock star or an actor in television and film, or you're a filmmaker and you're rich and famous, 85 to 90% of the time, women will most likely find you physically, sexually attractive. And men that women deemed not physical, sexually attractive, you see them all the time. You see them 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. A woman will say, you're too short, sexual harassment. Just because a guy is between 4'8" to 5'7" If you're like between that height, oh, she's gonna scream out sexual harassment. If you're fat and you're overweight, you know, you're 200 pounds, you're 300 pounds, you're 400 pounds. Hell, if you're a man and you're 500 pounds, a woman's gonna call out sexual harassment. So if you're too fat, you're too short, you're ugly, your teeth's messed up, she's not gonna find you physically, sexually attractive 85 to 90% of the time. Now, most women will say that's not true. And I always tell you, don't ever listen to what comes out of a woman's mouth. Always listen to her actions, not her words, her actions. Like, her mouth might say, I don't like you. But as soon as you get a car, and I'm talking about an expensive ass car, she contradicts herself. And the word contradiction means she say one thing, but she does something completely different. And that goes to why I say here's what the first stage of sexual harassment is. The first stage of sexual harassment is making a woman feel uncomfortable. Inappropriate touching, doing gestures with your looks, with your eyes. And the only type of men that get brought into the office, the only 2 times that a man gets brought into the office at his job is guys that are too short, guys that are fat, guys that are 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 400 pounds, 500 pounds, that are overweight or too short and are just ugly and not physically sexually attractive, meaning they don't have no sex appeal, right? Then there are times where a guy has a learning disability, meaning he can have stage 1 Asperger syndrome. There's Asperger's, there's Asperger syndrome, there's bipolar disease, there's schizophrenia bipolar, there's stage 1 autism. And if you have a learning disability, a lot of people, because they're ignorant and they don't educate themselves, they'll say the word, the person's retarded. So any man that look like he has Down syndrome or stage 1 Asperger's or Asperger syndrome or autism, women don't find that physically, sexually attractive 85 to 90% of the time. If you got Asperger's or Asperger syndrome or stage 1 autism, that goes in the category that you're introverted, meaning you don't know how to carry strong conversations. Remember my YouTube video called Looks versus Money, Looks versus Skills, Looks versus jobs and the internet, and then the last one was looks versus social interaction. Well, women want men that know how to carry a strong conversation. Remember that video called Intelligence versus Social Intelligence on my YouTube channel? Well, if you got stage 1 autism or stage 1 Asperger's or Asperger syndrome, women will not find that physically, sexually attractive. That's not a turn on, that's a turn off. And 85 to 90% of the time, when a woman find out you have a crush on her, doesn't matter if it's a black woman, a white woman, a Mexican woman, an Asian woman, or an Indian woman, 85 to 90% of the time, the woman feels threatened. She feels threatened and intimidated that here's a guy that's got a learning disability that creeps her out. So let's say you make jokes, because a lot of women that are from the feminist and the Me Too propaganda, they don't like guys that crack jokes. I'm going to use a prime example on how women are full of shit. Because they watch too much television and too many movies, and they've been socially conditioned to think ignorant and stupid and ass-backwards mentality way of thinking. They don't think properly when they're being socially conditioned. And I don't care who likes it and don't like me telling the truth. If you don't like it, it's too damn bad. It is what it is. The point that I'm trying to make is, let's use Dwayne "The Rock" as a prime example, right? He's a Hollywood actor, right? He was a professional wrestler for about 12 years. For 12 years, he was a professional wrestler. Now, The Rock is a big, stocky guy. Not somebody you want to pull a knife or a gun out on a Friday or Saturday night at the bar, because he'll whoop your ass. Trust me, The Rock will whoop your ass. You know, The Rock is 6'5", 250 pounds of muscle with big broad shoulders, 6-pack abs. He will whoop your ass if you try to pull a gun or a knife on you. I mean, he will give you at least 3 warnings to walk away before he has to lay the smack down on your candy ass. Now, if you look in all of The Rock's movies from the late 90s, early 2000s, they have in the script that The Rock makes 2 or 3 funny, I want to call them Deadpool wisecrack comedian jokes. And people laugh at him because it's The Rock making the joke. But let's say you make that same joke at 24 Hour Fitness, LA Fitness, Planet Fitness, Gold's Gym, Club Onyx, Club Bay, the YMCA, a community college, at work, at the park, at the gym. Let's say you try to make those jokes 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You're going to get brought into the H&R's office at some point. Whether it takes 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whether it takes 2 years, at some point you're going to get brought into the office a total of 3 to 4 times. And they're going to look at you and say, you're saying inappropriate gestures that make a number of women uncomfortable. And it don't matter if it's black women, white women, Mexican women, Asian women, Indian women, young or old, black or white. You're making a share of number of women uncomfortable. Now let Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson come to a Foot Locker and make that same wisecrack joke. No woman's gonna call sexual harassment on The Rock Dwayne the Johnson because they find him physically sexually attractive. And the way women got it set up, which is rude and disrespectful and is wrong for women to do it, is that they project images from movies and television shows onto the average man. Well, you're not Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Okay, ladies, most men are not between 6 feet to 6'5". So it's like, come on now. Most men are between 4'8" to 5'11". Like the tallest that most black men are like my height, 5'10", 5'11". That's it. Most men are not born 6 feet to 6'5". Most men are not 230, 240, 250 pounds of muscle with big broad shoulders with ripped 6-pack abs. Either you take performance enhancement drugs like all your professional basketball and football players, or you're 100% natural. I'm just trying to tell you what the problem is. Now you do it, you get brought into the H&R's office a total of 3 to 4 times. There's some cases where you can be brought in the office 5 to 10 times. You can be brought into an H&R office. So you might get 3 to 4 verbal warnings and maybe 2 to 3 write-ups. And once you get your final write-up, it goes into another category. It goes into termination, meaning you no longer have no employment. You no longer have a job no more. Because you started imitating Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson from all the Fast and Furious movies, because in those scripts they write for him to say wisecrack comedian jokes. Same thing with Ryan Reynolds. You might try to imitate Deadpool, and some of those jokes are very offensive to people, and someone may not like those jokes. So if Ryan Reynolds makes those jokes, no woman's calling the police on Ryan Reynolds, because it's Ryan Reynolds. It's rude and disrespectful, and it's hypocritical, and it's disingenuous. If it's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, no woman's going to call the police on Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson because it's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and he's 6'5", 250 pounds of muscle, and he's an actor in television and film. And The Rock is a comedian. So The Rock can get away with that. Ryan Reynolds can get away. If it's Chris Pratt, aka Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, he can make those type of jokes and get away with it. Now, when someone like you try it, it's a problem. Now, women who complain about sexual harassment are women that are not that physically sexually attractive. They're like average women. And they take the smallest thing they can think of and they blow it out of proportion. They get a magnifying glass and they magnify it 10 times and blow it out of proportion. It could be a situation where a man say, "I like your hair," or "Who fixed your hair up?" And the girl will say, "Thank you. I went to the salon on Sunday and I got my hair fixed up." And then 3 hours later, you get brought into the H&R's office because you said, "I like her hair." And they'll tell you, well, that's inappropriate. Now, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson come into a Foot Locker and say, "Damn, girl, you fine." You know, due to people's eyebrow and shit. Ain't no sexual harassment there because it's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. If you're Michael B. Jordan, aka Killmonger, you can look at a woman's ass and nothing bad will happen because it's Michael B. Jordan looking at that ass. If you're Chad Boseman, aka Black Panther, you can look at a woman's ass and nothing will happen because you're the Black Panther. So black women are making it where if you're not Michael B. Jordan, if you're not Chad Boseman, if you're not Dwayne The Rock Johnson, they don't want you looking at their big breasts and their big butt, looking at their long legs and looking at them in their skirt. So guys that are too short, guys that are fat and overweight, that are 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 400 pounds, 500 pounds overweight, guys that are just ugly and not physically sexually attractive, are the ones that get brought into the H&R's office. If you got a learning disability, you get brought into the H&R's office because you made a woman intimidated because of your learning disability. And you see, what women need to understand is a man can't control being too short. No man can control I'm short. Now, being ugly, if you got some money and you want to do plastic surgery, which I advise you don't do, but if a man does plastic surgery, okay, that might better his chances of fixing his face. Being fat, you can go to a 24-hour fitness or an LA Fitness and fix being fat and out of shape. You can fix that. Being too short, you can't fix. Having Down syndrome or autism or Asperger's, you can take medicine, but that won't fix all your problems. And you see, the reason why I name off those celebrities is because that's if it's a black woman. If it's a white woman or a Latino woman, then they'll do the same thing. If it ain't Chris Hemsworth, aka the Mighty Thor, then, you know, because Chris Hemsworth is like he's 6'1", 6'2". You know, his brother Ling Hemsworth looked like he's 6'1". You know, you've seen the Hunger Game movies. They want you to look like the guys from the Hunger Game movies, Thor, Chris Pratt from Guardians of Galaxy. You know, if you're not those men, then those women are not going to find you physically sexually attractive. Now, the women who keep complaining, or the women that when they hit the wall, and when they do hit the wall, then it's 10 years later, it's 15 years later, it's 20 years later. Extreme cases, it's 25 to 30 years later. When the woman is no longer good looking to look at, she'll come back to the same guy that she disrespected in high school and college, whether it was at the gym, whether it was at work. Now, if a man complain about sexual harassment, let's say I get hit on by a woman that's 300 pounds. Well, me going to the office and complaining, it does me no good, because they'll hit me with the most verbal insult that they can hit me with. You're even lucky that some woman even looked at you twice. Okay, she's 300 pounds, wow. At least you got a woman. And most men, the reason why most men don't bitch and complain about it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, is because in the eyes of society, it's not normal for you to be a man complaining that a woman 300 pounds, 400 pounds, or 500 pounds find you physically sexually attractive. And a lot of these men get sexually frustrated because when they were in high school and college, nobody paid them no attention. Now, here's what I will say. It is wrong to sexually objectify a woman, but it's also wrong for a woman to sexually objectify a man. The reason why a man don't complain about it is because he's getting attention. As long as he get attention, that's all he cares about. But when a man tries to do this with a woman that he finds physically sexually attractive, it goes in the category that if you're not physically sexually attractive, a woman will do you cold-blooded. I've seen it firsthand. A woman will go, okay, he's a creep. You know, same thing like when I said in the video, don't buy women gifts. Don't buy women nothing for their birthday, Valentine's Day. Don't buy her nothing for Christmas. That is also considered now as sexual harassment. So let's say it's some girl's birthday, right? I'm going to make up a name. Let's say I like Kelly. And let's say I find Kelly physically sexually attractive. And let's say I find out it was her birthday. I buy her a gift for her birthday, and maybe 4 months later they bring me in the H&R's office and say you did inappropriate behavior. To me, it's I just wanted to buy something for her birthday to acknowledge it's her birthday. And they might say, you could have just said happy birthday and that's it. You didn't have to buy nothing. So now you buy her something for Valentine's Day, her birthday, or Christmas, it's basically now sexual harassment. But if it's someone like Michael B. Jordan, if it's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, or it's the Black Panther, it's not sexual harassment. It's when a guy is too short, or he's fat and overweight and he's 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 400 pounds, it's sexual harassment. If the guy's teeth is messed up, I mean, like he got 2 or 3 teeth pulled out his damn mouth, yeah, then that's a problem. If the guy's got a learning disability, again, that is a problem. And if it's Chris Hemsworth or Lane Hemsworth, it's not sexual harassment. If it's Chris Pratt, aka Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, it's not sexual harassment. To me, this is the way it needs to go. Doesn't matter if you're rich and famous or if you're not rich and famous. Right is right, wrong is wrong. If it's wrong for a guy that's 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 400 pounds overweight, if it's wrong for a guy that's too short or ugly to hit on a female and it's sexual harassment, then you need to do the same thing to the professional basketball players, football players, baseball players, R&B singers, the rappers, the rock stars, the actors in television and film, the filmmakers. You need to do the same thing to them. And about 85 to 90% of the time, most women will never do it because I can get into the movies and the television shows. I can get into the rap videos. I can get VIP section at the nightclub. So 85 to 90% of the time, most women will never do it. Even though it's the right thing to do, they will never do it. When they hit the wall, when a woman gets in her 30s and her 40s and her 50s, that's when she finds the men that she never found physically sexually attractive. The problem is, now that you're 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 years old, that guy that you called the police on 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, extreme cases 25 to 30 years ago, he don't find you physically sexually attractive no more. And when men say women are full of shit, what men are complaining about is the behavior that you display. And you see, women will always say, well, maybe you should find a woman that's your type. And most men, and this is how come some men end up having sex with fat women. This is how come you see men have sex with big fat women that's 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 400 pounds, 500 pounds, because that's the only female that find them physically sexually attractive. So when women are from the age of 18 to 29, when women are in their prime, women are being sexually harassed because they're in their prime. They're beautiful and they're attractive. But when they get in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, and this is what makes women full of shit 85 to 90% of the time. When they get 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 years old, they start bitching and complaining 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, that no man is paying no attention to them. I'm going to tell you what group of men that are not paying attention at that age. Basketball players, football players, baseball players, guys that are R&B singers, rappers, rock stars, actors in television and film, filmmakers. Those men are no longer paying attention once it's 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, extreme cases 25 to 30 years later. And you see, that's how women get pumped and dumped and get used for sex. And the men that you ignored in high school and college, the guy that you didn't talk to at the gym, the guy that you went to the H&R's office and complained and almost got him fired, he ain't gonna talk to you no more either, because at that point he sees that you're full of shit. So the rule goes like this: the older women get, the more desperate they get. So in the beginning, when they're in their prime, when they're in their 20s, they don't want you looking at the ass and the titties. But once they get in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, and sometimes their 60s, now they don't mind you looking at the ass. Doesn't matter if it's a big ass or a small ass. Doesn't matter if it's big tits or small tits. If they got long legs, now they don't mind you looking. If they got a short mini skirt, now they want you to look. Problem is, once they hit the wall and they get up there at 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 years old, you don't find them physically, sexually attractive no more. The only type of men that will date women that have hit the wall are men that are sexually frustrated, because for so long you wanted that attention. Like, to finish the video off, I'll give you a prime example. Remember the voice actor Vic from Dragon Ball Z Slash Super? The voice actor that plays the voice of Broly? Okay, he lost his job last year at Funimation because for almost 12 years, he was pursuing a girl that was a voice actress. And he found her physically, sexually attractive, and basically she ended up going to the office and complaining about his indiscretions and behavior. And ultimately, it ruined his career because even though he was not found guilty, he has trouble looking for work as a voice actor. And I guarantee you, someone made a YouTube video last year saying that the only reason why she reported him to the office because she didn't find him physically, sexually attractive. Now, this woman is like 230 pounds fat and overweight and looked like she's bipolar. And basically, had that been Chris Hemsworth, had that been Leans Hemsworth, she wouldn't mind being hit on. Problem was, it's not Chris Hemsworth, it's not Lean Hemsworth. So when a woman say, I'm being sexually objectified, they don't mind if it's a basketball player or a football player doing it. The only time those guys get in trouble is if you dumped a girl. Let's say you break up with a girl, right? Well, now the woman will say you sexually harassed me because you dumped her. Let's say you cheat on her and you go date her sister. Well, now that woman wants revenge because you dumped her. So the only time those men get into trouble is when you basically cheated on her with her sister, or you're messing with another girl. So that's why I'm saying, so yeah, men can be creeps, men can be weirdos, but when women hit the wall and they're in their 30s and their 40s, and it's more when women get in their early to late 50s, early 60s, that's when women become creeps. And when they become creeps, they start hitting on you and start coming on to you strong and powerful and aggressive. And if you were to complain, then everyone will say, stop being a little crybaby. Stop being a little girl. Be happy that you got some female attention for once. And never mind that it took 10 years for that attention. Never mind that it took you 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or extreme cases, 25 to 30 years. Never mind that it took almost 2 decades for you to get some attention. But when women hit the wall and they get up there in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s and their 60s, they will come on to most men very strong, very powerful, very aggressive, and then they want you to look at their ass. Then they want you to look at their breasts. And that lets you know how full of shit and how hypocritical most women are. Most women will never admit the truth until they hit the wall. So when you always ask why you did sexual harassment on one man and then do it to the other guy, it always comes down to that guy looks so damn fine and so good looking, that's why I did it. And the other guy that she reported, he was too short. He was too fat. So think about it. You know how you can tell? If the guy's too short, yeah, he's going to be sent to the H&R office. If he's fat and out of shape or ugly and not good looking, he's going to go to the H&R's office. I'm just trying to explain to you the nature of the situation so you can understand why I say what I say in the video. This ain't me women bashing. It's me trying to explain the good and the bad. And what I'm saying is if it's wrong for one man to do it, then the basketball player and the football player should be held to the same standard. And women don't like to do that because they won't get their opportunities to get into the movies or the television shows or the rap videos or VIP at the nightclub if they do that to the basketball and football player. And the only time a woman will do that to a film director or a rock star and ruin his career is if he have sex with another woman and she accused him of cheating. That's when she'll take the good-looking man and say he sexually harassed me. But 80 to 90% of the time, it's guys they don't find physically sexually attractive. And I already made a YouTube video on my old channel on my new channel called There's Two Types of Hot Guys. That's why I said that most of these men who make that mistake are guys that are sexually frustrated because you didn't get no attention for 10 years. So I'm not saying it's okay and it's right for a man to sexually justify a woman. What I'm saying is, if one man does that type of behavior and the other man is being held to a high standard and the other guy's not, then that's disingenuous. And then women do that same thing back in return when they don't get the attention no more. So when women hit the wall, they will give you the attention, but when you get the attention, it ain't the way you expect. It comes in the way that you don't expect. All right, this video is getting a little bit too long. Peace.